Section 1, Birth of the Bloods, From Protection to Power, Los Angeles, sunshine and beaches, right? But behind the postcard, a different story brewed. In the 1970s, South Central LA was a pressure cooker of racial tension and poverty simmering away. Black neighborhoods ignored and marginalized became fertile ground for something new. Not gangs, not at first. More like groups, kids banding together. Protection from existing gangs, that was the idea. One group stood out, the Pirates. Raymond Washington, a charismatic leader, rallied kids tired of being pushed around. They weren't angels, petty crime, turf battles, but bigger trouble loomed. The Crips, larger, more organized, started flexing. Smaller groups felt the squeeze, had to choose sides. Washington saw the writing on the wall. He had a vision, unity. Bring smaller sets together, a united front against the Crip tide. Red became their banner, a symbol of defiance. Bloods, they called themselves, inspired by the Peru Street Boys' red shirts. Word spread, more joined. Strength in numbers, they learned, but this was just the beginning. The firestorm was about to ignite. Section 2. The Crips emerge, a sea of blue in a troubled city. While the Bloods were finding their feet, another force was already carving its own path. The Crips, born around the same time, were painting the town blue. Led by Stanley Tookie Williams and Raymond Washington. Different guy, confusing, right? They were a force of nature. They started like many, seeking belonging in a world that seemed to have no place for them. But the Crips, they had a knack for organization, for intimidation. Their influence spread like wildfire, absorbing smaller groups, demanding loyalty. Blue bandanas became their flag, a symbol of unity. A sea of blue in a sea of troubles. They commanded respect, instilled fear. They were a force to be reckoned with. Their reputation preceded them. Stories of their exploits, real or exaggerated, spread through the streets. They became synonymous with a certain kind of power, a dangerous allure. Kids saw them as protectors, role models even, in a world with few, but this power, it came at a price paid in blood. Section 3, Colors of Conflict, Red versus Blue, a city divided. With the Bloods and Crips now established, the stage was set for a showdown. Two powerful gangs, each vying for control of the streets. Respect, territory, even survival were all at stake. It started with skirmishes, small-time clashes, but soon these escalated into full-blown turf wars. Every corner, every street became a battleground. The colors, red and blue, took on new meaning. No longer just symbols of unity, they became badges of war. Wearing the wrong color in the wrong neighborhood could be a death sentence. The violence escalated, becoming more brutal, more senseless. The police seemed powerless to stop it. The gangs had infiltrated every nook and cranny of the city. Fear gripped the streets. Innocent bystanders got caught in the crossfire. Lives were lost, families shattered. The city of angels was bleeding, and it seemed like there was no end in sight. Section 4, Fueling the fire, drugs, turf wars, and cycles of violence. The rivalry wasn't just about colors or territory, it was about survival, about power, and nothing fueled that fire more than the drug trade. Crack cocaine hit the streets like a hurricane in the 1980s. It was cheap, addictive, and incredibly profitable. The gangs saw an opportunity, a way to finance their wars and expand their empires. Turf wars, once about respect and reputation, now had a deadly new dimension. Control of a corner could mean control of a pipeline of cash, and the gangs were willing to do whatever it took to protect their investments. Drive-by shootings, drug deals gone wrong, innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. Violence became a way of life, a grim reality for those living in the shadow of the gangs. The cycle was vicious and seemingly unbreakable. Poverty, lack of opportunity, and systemic racism created a breeding ground for despair. Gangs offered a sense of belonging, of family, even a twisted sense of purpose. But the price of membership was steep. Loyalty was everything, and betrayal often meant death. Locked in a deadly dance, the rise of crack cocaine and gang warfare. Crack cocaine wasn't just a drug, it was a game changer. Highly addictive, easy to produce, it flooded the streets. Profits soared for the gangs, but so did the body count. Turf wars intensified, each block a potential gold mine. Violence became a business strategy, brutal and indiscriminate. Police, overwhelmed, resorted to increasingly aggressive tactics. But the war on drugs felt like a war on their own communities. Mass incarceration became the norm, locking up a generation of young black men. But inside prison walls, the rivalry didn't end, it festered. Gangs recruited heavily, turning prisons into breeding grounds for hardened criminals. The cycle seemed endless. Young men went in for petty offenses, came out as hardened gangbangers. Communities were ravaged, families torn apart. The human cost of this war was immeasurable, a stain on the soul of the city. Beyond the headlines, the human cost of gang violence. It's easy to get lost in the statistics, the body counts, but behind each number, a story. A mother's tears, a child's lost innocence. The impact of gang violence stretched far beyond the headlines. Communities once vibrant became shells of their former selves. Fear became a constant companion. Parents kept their kids indoors, afraid to let them play outside. Schools became battlegrounds, the sound of gunshots replacing the laughter of children. The cycle of violence became self-perpetuating, each act of aggression breeding more pain, more anger. The psychological toll was immense. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, became commonplace, a silent epidemic. Trust eroded, replaced by suspicion and fear. The social fabric of entire communities was ripped apart, leaving behind scars that might never fully heal. Music as a megaphone. Gangsta rap and the rise of West Coast hip-hop. Out of the concrete jungle, a new voice emerged. Gangsta rap, raw, unapologetic, gave voice to the anger, the despair, the reality of life in the crosshairs. NWA, Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, they weren't journalists, but they told the stories the mainstream media ignored. Their music, a soundtrack to the streets, both reflected and fueled the violence. Critics called it glorification, but for many it was a form of survival, a way to process trauma, to reclaim power through storytelling. It gave a voice to the voiceless, exposed the hypocrisy of a society that turned a blind eye to their plight. Gangsta rap wasn't pretty, but it was real. It wasn't all negative. Some rappers used their platform to preach peace, to call for an end to the violence. They became community activists, mentors, trying to break the cycle of despair. Their music, a reflection of their lived experiences, became a force for change, however imperfect. From streets to screens, the gangs of Los Angeles in popular culture. Hollywood, never one to miss a trend, jumped on the bandwagon. Movies like Boys in the Hood, Menace II, Society brought the realities of gang life to the big screen. They were gritty, often violent, but they also offered a glimpse into a world most Americans only saw on the evening news. These films sparked debate, raised awareness, but also drew criticism for glamorizing the lifestyle. Were they exploiting the very communities they claimed to represent? Or were they holding up a mirror to society, forcing it to confront uncomfortable truths? The answer, like most things, was complex. One thing was for sure, the image of the gangster, the Blood, the Crip, became ingrained in the American consciousness. For better or worse, these gangs became cultural icons, their symbols co-opted by fashion brands and music videos. The line between reality and fiction blurred, further complicating the narrative. The long road to peace attempts at truce and community intervention. Amid the chaos, glimmers of hope emerged. Community leaders, activists, even gang members themselves grew weary of the bloodshed. Truces were negotiated, fragile but significant. In 1992, following the Rodney King riots, a truce between the Bloods and Crips made headlines. It wasn't perfect, there were setbacks, flare-ups, but it showed that dialogue was possible, that even amidst the hatred, a yearning for peace existed. Organizations like Ceasefire, founded by former gang members, worked tirelessly to mediate conflicts, to offer alternatives to violence. These efforts often went unnoticed, overshadowed by the latest shooting or drug bust, but they represented a ray of light in the darkness. They showed that change was possible, that even the most deeply entrenched rivalries could be overcome, one step at a time. Life after the Colors, former gang members seeking redemption. Leaving the gang life behind was never easy. The streets have a long memory and the pull of the familiar can be strong, but many former gang members, haunted by their pasts, sought redemption. They dedicated their lives to steering young people away from the path they had taken. They shared their stories, raw and unflinching, in schools, community centers, even prisons. They became living proof that change was possible, that even from the darkest depths one could rise. They understood the allure of the streets, the sense of belonging, the feeling of invincibility. but they also knew the devastating consequences, the pain, the loss. Their message resonated with many young people who saw themselves reflected in their stories. They offered hope, a way out of the abyss. Their journeys were a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, redemption is possible. A legacy of pain, resilience, and hope. The Bloods and Crips, their rivalry, left an indelible mark on American culture. Their story is a complex tapestry woven from threads of poverty, racism, violence, and despair. But it's also a story of resilience, of hope, of the enduring human spirit's ability to find light in even the darkest corners. The gangs, though born from adversity, perpetuated a cycle of violence that claimed countless lives and shattered communities. Their legacy serves as a stark reminder of the societal ills that must be addressed to prevent such tragedies from recurring. Yet, amidst the pain and loss, there are flickers of hope. The efforts of former gang members, community leaders, and activists demonstrate that change is possible. Their work, often thankless and dangerous, offers a blueprint for building a more peaceful and just future. The story of the Bloods and Crips is a cautionary tale, but it's also a testament to the power of redemption and the enduring belief in a better tomorrow.